Alrighty, welcome to the username podcast with E Bean and D Corp. That's still a working title, so we'll take suggestions on that. I am one half of that podcast name, Eric Bean, and to my left on the computer screen is Bryan Kurdutsky. Bryan, how's it going?
Good. Been going well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Just hanging out in a garage in Arizona, doing another podcast, living the dream, So the Avs were living the dream after they
Yeah.
scored three goals in a minute 23 yesterday, finally
Yeah.
breaking past Darcy Kemper and prevailing over the Arizona Coyotes in game one. I thought the Avs played very well the whole game. The first two goals especially were them crashing the net, and I think
Yeah.
it really helped because that was what they were struggling at the whole game. And you just have to get those gritty playoff goals when you get to playoff hockey, and they were able to do that, which I thought was really encouraging. Then Rantanen had the third goal, which was just a great hockey play by McKinnon with the passing and Rantanen getting on one knee and being able to.
Yeah.
It's amazing what our top line can do.
Yeah. It's great because we're outplaying them the entire game. I mean, if I'm correct, we had like 30 shots on goal before they had 10. So, um, I don't know. It was just kind of waiting for the floodgates to open. And then once you got that second power play, took advantage of it. And then after that, Arizona just looked defeated. That's how that second goal got in like 10 seconds. The Avs just crashed the nets, and really it was all about getting rebounds. They didn't get many rebound opportunities the whole game, but once they had that chance, then it's a lot easier.
Yep.
That's what I
Yeah, for
say.
sure. Yeah. The Avalanche had trouble with Darcy Kemper in a playoff series 7 years ago when he played with the Minnesota Wild. Obviously,
Yeah.
everything's far different now, but I don't know. The feeling of playing him again wasn't exactly a welcoming feeling, but the fact that we were able to end up getting three past him in that third period is encouraging for the rest of the series. I think that we're better than Arizona basically across the board, if I'm being completely honest. I think that they could pose threats. They do have threats on offense. Obviously, Phil Kessel with his playoff experience, Taylor Hall, Clayton Keller. So yeah, they have guys that can pose a threat. But certainly they were quieted by the Avalanche in game one. So obviously very encouraging signs going into game two on Friday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Game two's on Friday, you said?
Yeah.
It's another afternoon one, right?
Yep, it's gonna be 3:30 or no. It's gonna be 12 p.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. on the West Coast. So
Jeez.
yeah,
Yeah. Bright and early.
yep.
All right. Looking forward to that. That should be good.
Yeah, and then broader NHL talk, I may just touch on a few teams. St. Louis still hasn't won a game yet. They lost to Vancouver last night, so we'll see how their cup defense, if they can improve at all in their first round series. The Capitals were up 2-0 against the Islanders yesterday, lost that game. Bruins beat the Hurricanes in, I believe it was double overtime, and then the big story was the quintuple overtime game between
Yeah.
the Blue Jackets and the Lightning.
I didn't get a chance to watch that, but I saw everything about it I was on Twitter at the time. Everyone was talking about it. It's crazy.
Yeah, five overtimes. It's just like you wonder how these games can go this long, and I think that series is going to be a very long series, 6 or 7 games. So it's fun that we're still able to get this playoff feel even without the fans, and you're seeing a bit of that also in the NBA with the bubble. It seems like everyone's very engaged and obviously has investment in it as far as rooting for their teams to win.
Yeah, the bubble's definitely obviously something different, and it's something that coming into it, you're wondering how is this going to work. But I think the NBA has done a really good job of making it work and making it feel like, because at first it was like, oh, there's no fans. Will it even feel like real basketball? And then when the first games happened, like when the Lakers played, who did they play? I don't remember, but that was like
Clippers.
one of the first. Yeah, oh yeah, it was the Clippers. I was gonna say those first two playoff or not playoff games, but um, even just the preseason like um, games before that, the scrimmages, there was intensity. It was fun to watch as a fan. You didn't think about it as much as you thought you would, I think. And I think the NBA did a good job of making that kind of the goal, was to make it feel not the same as it would before, but make it purposefully different. So it's just a different experience. They're not trying to make it something that it's not. They're kind of embracing the fact that it is different, and I think it's working out.
Yep, the NHL is embracing that. I think also just with some of the stuff they put on the big boards during the game, like
Yeah, yeah,
the
I see
seventh
this.
period stretch, and we apologize if you had other plans tonight. I like that one. During the first Avs game in the bubble, they said tonight's attendance 0. So they're trying to keep it somewhat lighthearted for the viewers.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot.
Yep. So, yeah, also, so the Nuggets played the Clippers last night, which ended in a 124-111 defeat. The Nuggets were up by 8 at halftime, saw that lead go away almost at the end of the third quarter. We were up by, I believe, 2 points at the end of the quarter.
Yeah, I mean,
Or go ahead.
yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, they lost the lead in the third, but they fought back towards the end of it and got the lead. But yeah, these kind of games aren't too much to read into. As you've seen, like Michael Malone's been putting the bench out there for the latter half of the third quarter and the entire fourth quarter against these good teams. So I think there's more positives to take away from the both losses to LA than really negatives. But yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to hear your thoughts on Michael Malone doing this, just because you've just seen it kind of trend across all sports. That seems like teams are caring less and less about their seeding, even though you in the NBA you usually get like the 1 and the 2 seed in the finals. But like it just feels like that there's going to be 4, maybe 5 teams in the running this year. So what were your thoughts on like Michael Malone taking this approach, and do you think it's going to help us in the long run?
I think I'm a fan of it, honestly. I think that especially with all the banged up, like injury proneness we have going on, especially in the Utah game, the double overtime, when that was Jamal Murray's first game back, and he played his. I saw his minute restriction before the game was planned to be like 28 minutes, and he ended up playing almost 40 minutes that game, and that like worried me. He was visibly like shaking the entire game. He was like holding his hamstring at points, and the whole team was kind of banged up. Michael Porter Jr., who's been playing 35 minutes these last like 3-4 games, and he hasn't played that much since high school, and not even in high school. The games he can't even play 40 minutes in high school, was not that long. But like stuff like that, you just throw people in and they're playing all these minutes, and it's really hard. And I think it's a lot safer of an idea to bring it back a little bit, because again, seeding, if you get besides matchups, seeding doesn't matter in terms of home court advantage. Everyone's going to be in the level playing field, which will work to some people's advantage and others' disadvantage. But I don't know. Besides matchups, seeding didn't really matter as much. I was okay with Michael Malone letting off the gas against the Lakers, who the Nuggets had their bench in the entire fourth and almost all third, and almost beat LeBron James and all the starters who were playing the entire third, like second half. I thought that was ridiculous. PJ Dozier had like 18 points, like a career high.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it says something, and I think that game alone was really cool to see how the bench was holding their own against the big bad LA LeBron James led team. But yeah, overall, I was a fan of just like letting off the gas. We did it. You've seen this 3 times now between both LA teams and against Portland. The Nuggets did the same thing. But I think overall, it's more important to be healthy for these for this playoff run, as opposed to worrying about whether you're the 2 seed or 3 seed.
Yeah. So I have 2 follow-up questions to that. So obviously with the Nuggets being the 3 seed, our matchup against the Utah Jazz is set. And what are your initial thoughts on playing the Utah Jazz? I guess our cross-state rival. I always felt like there was a little bit of a rivalry there.
Yeah.
Not a little bit. There is a rivalry there. So what do you think about this series?
I like this matchup for the Nuggets, particularly. I like Jokic's chances against Gobert. I think Gobert's more of an overrated. He's a good defender, but Jokic can. You saw it in the double overtime game. In both overtimes, fourth quarter, Jokic was taking him to the hole every single time. But I like the matchup I was afraid the Nuggets were going to get, which if they would have got the 2 seed, would have been the Mavericks, or if the Mavericks were move up a seed, but they lost when they lost to Portland, they were kind of locked into the 7th seed. That's the only team I was really afraid of because Luka Doncic was on fire. Porzingis was averaging like 7 more points a game than he was in the regular season. They just looked hot. They're already one of the best offensive teams, and the Nuggets are by far the worst defensive team that's in the bubble right now. They've kind of shown that and haven't really – that's something Michael Malone's been on about in these like post-game interviews is how they kind of just don't have any like perimeter defense. And then once they go by, Jokic isn't the best inside defender to stop that. But I think that against the Jazz, as long as you contain Donovan Mitchell, they don't really have many weapons outside of him with Bogdanovich gone. And I just don't see Rudy Gobert doing that much to Jokic. So I think it's a good matchup for the Nuggets.
Yeah. Yeah. So Michael Porter Jr. before the pause in the season, a lot of people were clamoring for Michael Malone to give Michael Porter Jr. more minutes, and you've seen that in the bubble, and obviously you're getting that offensive production. But putting Michael Porter Jr. in the game, do you think that makes our defense dip down a bit just because of his experience? And do you think that we have to consider that trade-off when thinking about how many minutes MPJ might play during the playoffs?
Definitely. I think with any rookie, defense is the thing they have to improve on the most because it's such a different beast playing in the NBA than college, which in Michael Porter's real last basketball experience was high school. So it's a really tough transition. But even through these you saw the first game he played in the bubble. Michael Malone still had him on a tight leash. He went under his screen and allowed the guy to get by him, and Michael Malone yanked him from the game, and he was visibly upset. But then I think the overall treatment Michael Malone has given MPJ, it's hard to pick a side kind of because you know what he can do. He's obviously very talented, but it's hard to believe he would have developed the same if Michael Malone would have just given him the keys to the city and let him have 30 minutes a game from the get-go. I think he's done a good job of pacing him up, teaching him, mentoring him, keeping him humble. And I think something I've noticed is MPJ early in the season when he started playing, once he was healthy, he looked like a rookie. He looked kind of scared. He didn't feel like he was a part of the team, kind of doing his own thing. But now you see in the bubble, he's been given this second chance almost with all these injuries to go out there and play. And he looks much more – he said he doesn't feel like a rookie anymore. He said he feels like part of the team. And he's now at least a top 3 player on the roster. If the Nuggets want any chance to make a title run, he's going to be a big piece of it. So I think you can live with some defensive mistakes, but he has even gotten better. Just his sheer size and athleticism has helped him a lot, but his positioning's gotten better. But I think that trade-off it'll be hard, but I think you'll need his offensive production more than you need his defense because depending on who his matchup is, his length and athleticism should be hopefully enough to stifle defenses. You've seen him put his hand up and alter shots and stuff, and that's kind of what you need him to do.
Yeah, for sure. And then speaking about Gary Harris, Will Barton, Gary Harris is probably one of the top 2 or 3 defenders on the team, along with Torrey Craig. I don't know who else you might throw in there. But yeah, getting him back, I think, will help on defense. And then Will Barton, obviously, maybe not as much offense as Michael Porter Jr., but I think he also will help that. So it's just gonna, like, once Harris and Barton are back, which hopefully they'll be back for the playoffs.
Yeah, I've seen some speculation about because they were saying they wanted to get them in for this final seeding game, what they call it, on Friday, just to get them reps and minutes. But nothing's been said yet. They've still been out, and the Nuggets have been really secretive about it. So I don't know. You'd hope you'd see them back, but even then, working them back into a rotation will be really tough. Like MPJ will still definitely start. You'd have to bring them both off the bench, if any. I was curious on your take. As a question, if you could only have Will Barton or Gary Harris back, like fully healthy, to help the team, who would it be?
I don't know. I feel like Will Barton and MPJ kind of play that 3 spot, both of them. And Gary Harris, I'd say, is probably a top 2 defender on the team. I think the Nuggets would benefit from both of them returning, but I think that just Gary Harris on defense would help the team out so much.
That's what I was thinking.
They need it right now. So
yeah, their perimeter defense. You look at every single game they have, their opponent is in like the 130s, and like high scoring games in the bubble is like kind of the thing. It's a lot. It's definitely like a shooter's gym, so to speak. But every single game, their opponent's been in the 120s, 130s. So yeah, perimeter defense is really tough, and I think Gary would help a lot with that. And we'll need him for if we say go up against the Clippers. You'll have Jeremy Grant guarding probably Kawhi. You'll need Gary Harris to guard anyone else like Paul George or more offensive threats that they have. And I think that Will Barton's skill set is almost covered by MPJ, like by a long shot. Like there's nothing Will Barton can do that MPJ can't. Nothing like that would alter the game that much that MPJ can't do already. So yeah, I think he's important. Yeah. Hopefully he's healthy.
Jeremy Grant was the third name I want to include with Gary Harris and Torrey Craig as far as like defensive prowess. And I mean, our defense was good before the pause, and now like
we were one of the best. This is the best defensive season we've had in the last 6 years, and maybe longer. And then before the hiatus, we were one of the top ranked defenses, coming down a little bit, but then after the hiatus, it's been rough. And I feel like I heard on one of the broadcasts, I forget which, but the announcers were talking about how like over the hiatus, people can still work on like their strength and their shooting. Anyone can find like a hoop and practice, but defense is like a team effort, and it's hard to practice that and get comfortable with that just by yourself. So I think that's one part of it, possibly. You hope to see that pick up. And people like Jeremy Grant's going to be huge for a series like against the Clippers. He can guard positions 1 through 4. He's going to be a really big asset for that.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, so just going to the broader NBA, obviously one of the big storylines is the race for that last playoff spot between Portland, Memphis, San Antonio, and Phoenix, and all those games are going to be happening today. So this podcast will be posted during or after all those games have completed. Saturday is going to be the Western Conference play-in. It's basically a sure thing at this point. If the 9 seed wins on Saturday, they play again on Sunday, and then the playoffs begin on Monday. So, do you think this 8 versus 9 seed game is a smart move, or do you think just because they're all kind of duking it out now that maybe it's not as necessary?
I liked it. I was a little skeptical at first. I'm like, oh, now they're trying to be like video game-ish with it, like trying to um play it. But I guess that's kind of what I was saying before. Is like it's nice how they're kind of not taking themselves too seriously. They're making it different. Um, and I think it actually worked out well because at first I was like, oh, it's gonna be like the Grizzlies are like 4 games ahead of everybody, but then is like perfect storyline. The Grizzlies choke. The Portland gets like 2 more players back in like Nurkic and Zach Collins. They go on a run. That Dame is on fire. Um, and then the Suns go 7-0, which like no one's expecting. The Suns are like out. I saw a lot of media personalities say, "Why are the Suns like even invited to the bubble?" And it's kind of crazy to think the Suns could go 8-0 and still not make the play-in. But that's kind of I don't know. I like it. It's a second storyline kind of to what's gonna happen. There's every single team has a chance to get in still, depending on all the games. So that's something to keep an eye on. I like it. I think it's keeps you on your toes. It adds a different storyline.
Who do you think it's going to end up being on Saturday?
Portland should take care of business, and then the Portland and Grizzlies control their own destiny. If either of them wins, then they will get in. So it's hard not to say them. The Grizzlies face a Bucks team that is without Giannis. I don't even know if Giannis would have played anyways. But yeah, and I think they're all facing teams that would probably rest all their starters. So, or for the most part. So it's interesting. So I really don't know. I think it should be easy to take care of business. So I'd say Blazers and Grizzlies. It's interesting because the Blazers have the nightcap. They'll be the last game. So
Yeah,
that'll kind of decide a lot.
yeah,
The Blazers are facing a Nets team who have been playing really well, actually. The Nets they have an entire new team based off of people who are playing and their sole motivation is to get contracts for next season. So I think that's the most dangerous team is the team playing for a job.
yeah, for sure.
I don't know. So that'll be a fun matchup.
Yeah, and then obviously the top teams, the favorites, probably boil down to the Lakers, Clippers, Bucks, and Raptors at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just have this weird feeling that Toronto is gonna sneak up on Milwaukee again, and I don't know. We'll see. And then
They could, yeah.
obviously without Kawhi this year, though, you feel like Giannis should be able to win that game. But just like throughout the bubble, the Bucks have had these. Maybe it's just a byproduct of them already clinching the 1 seed, but they've had these close games against middle of the pack Western Conference teams like the Rockets and Mavs, and they've blown both of them at the very end.
Yeah.
You just question their finishing ability a little bit, but yeah, and then in the West you have the Lakers and Clippers. Everyone's like, "Oh, the Clippers are just coasting through this season. They're gonna turn it up once the playoffs start." But we'll see if that actually ends up happening.
Yeah, it's hard because there's like they obviously didn't have their whole roster the entire year. Like Kawhi would play half the games and Paul George would play the other half of the games, basically. So you see like a cohesion factor. Can they pull together? And even the Lakers, they've had the worst offense in the bubble this far. And obviously their best offensive game was against the Nuggets because of their defense. But yeah, the Lakers seem to have. That's the reason they played all their starters against the Nuggets bench was because they had lost 2 straight, maybe 3 straight, 2 or 3 straight, and then they just needed to pull. They kind of they already had the 1 seed locked up. They just needed like a confidence booster, I guess. They needed to. I'm sure after that win, Kuzma was all hyped up about his shot, but LeBron pulled them back down to earth. It's like, okay, we just beat Bol Bol and Keita Bates Diop. Like, let's calm down a little bit. So yeah, there's some mess there. And then I think with Giannis in the East, I feel like teams are starting to figure out Giannis a little bit. He's not quite as dominant as he was last year. At least it seems that way. maybe during the regular season, but now in this bubble. And Toronto's defense has been the best defense by far. I've heard people call it Jurassic Park, where teams are afraid to go in there. Their defense, if you watch highlights, they're so good at rotating and switching, and I don't know, they're looking really good. And it's crazy because they don't have that big name Kawhi Leonard anymore. It's full of the whole squad of Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam that stepped up the most. Kyle Lowry, who's actually doing well, not in someone else's shadow. He's doing a lot better as like another, like I guess just like a part of a team player rather than like a full-on second option. So I think the Raptors are a dark horse, even though they're the second seed.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it'll be an. I don't know, I think that. What's your thoughts on Boston? Do they have a chance in this thing?
Boston's interesting because Jason Tatum can catch fire pretty quickly, but he can also. I think he's been doing well since. But I remember watching the first game they had in the bubble, and Jason Tatum went like 0 for 13 or something, and he was like 1 for 13 in the game, had 2 points, but that one basket was like a missed rebound by the other team, and it went in, and he was the nearest person, so they counted his points. So they're interesting. I think for them, they have to play because they can get offensive production in a lot of different ways, whether through Cantor in the post, who's been actually playing pretty well, or like outside movement and scoring, like from Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. But so I think their defense is key there. They faced the Sixers in the first round, who I had the Sixers as a dark horse actually before Ben Simmons got injured. Because he was playing really well, Embiid was playing really well, but now without Simmons, they look so lost. I don't know if you watched the Raptors-Sixers game last night, but it was pretty poor showing. They just looked really lost the entire time.
Weren't they up like early and then the Raptors came back and won?
Yeah. And then again, those games are hard to judge because teams are like I'm pretty sure both teams benched all their starters in like the last quarter.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the Celtics. Let's see, who would they face if they win the first round? They would face Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and I would take Toronto in that 7-game series.
Yeah. Yeah, same here. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I want the Nuggets to beat the Clippers, but it's just one of those things where can you see it happening? So what would you consider a good result for the Nuggets in the playoffs this year?
You'd have to say a Western Conference final trip because they were really close last year. And I think maybe the best thing that could have happened to them was them losing that Game 7 last year. Gave them a chip on their shoulder. You've seen Jamal Murray talk about it a lot. He has like unfinished business he wants to take care of. He's talked a lot about like he's gained a lot of like muscle mass and talk about using it in the post because he noticed that in the playoffs you have to be able to switch, in his words, you have to be able to switch 1 through 5 whenever. I think that just playoff experience in general is really big for them. So I think they have what it takes to bring them to the Western Conference Finals. But through that road is Los Angeles and the Clippers. But they showed last night they can hang more than hang with them. The Clippers were without like Patrick Beverley and Montrezl Harrell. But Nuggets were also without some pieces. So you'd hope that by second round they can get a little healthy, have their rhythm together more than they had before. And anything can happen, especially with this. There's no home court advantage. I think that plays really well for the Nuggets because, I don't know. The Nuggets actually had one of their best road records this year, though. But playoffs is a whole different beast. So I think a Western Conference Finals trip would be what Nuggets fans are hoping for. Whether that comes or not, it's another story. So.
Yeah. I mean, I hope we can take that next step, and it's kind of like what we should do. But yeah, the Lakers and Clippers obviously have the star power there. I think the Nuggets can match that. It's just a matter of if I think Jokic is there. It's just a matter of if Jamal Murray can improve upon his playoff performance last year.
Yeah, that and the big thing is for the bubble. I told you that I confident about them before because yeah, throw in Michael Porter Jr. into the equation, and he's huge. Like that's such a big. He's getting a lot more minutes. He's making a difference. He played a pretty poor game last night, but the night before he just played the first half and he went 6 for 6. You've seen what he can do on the offensive end. He scored like 37 points his first real game. Like he's going to be the difference maker. If the Nuggets want a chance at a championship, he's going to be the reason, which is insane to me because I wouldn't have said that earlier. It's really cool to see like the difference.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, obviously NBA playoffs start next Monday. So I'm sure we'll talk more and more about the Nuggets and their first round series against Utah. And as the NFL season approaches, I'm sure we'll be talking more about the Broncos and their season. If it ends up happening, I'm pretty sure it will. So I don't want to talk about that question. I'd rather talk about what should Broncos fans, what should their expectation be for Drew Lock, just as far as last year, obviously the 4-1, and just going into this year, you obviously had Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler in the draft. So there's a lot of hype around the team, and maybe we will become more of an offensive juggernaut. But just with 7 teams, do you consider the Broncos right now as a top 7 team in the conference, thus making them a playoff team?
I think they have that potential, definitely. I've seen a couple of different mocks where they do have them making the playoffs, second in the AFC West, obviously behind Kansas City. But again, with the expanded playoffs, they have an even better opportunity to do so. And you would hope that their offense does take that next leap forward. You've seen the stints of it in Drew Lock. The thing with Drew Lock, I still want to keep cautious about him. Broncos fans and football fans in general are quick to like praise someone or like put them on that GOAT pedestal very quickly. And Drew Lock has played like 5 games, as we know, or started 5 games. And I think it takes a while for teams to figure out someone. That's kind of how like Brock Osweiler worked. Like he was insane the first few games, but then teams get film on him and he's a lot easier to break down and figure out. You'd hope that's not the case exactly with Drew Lock. But adding offensive weapons like Jerry Jeudy, and God, who's the Chargers running back?
Melvin Gordon. Yeah.
Yeah, adding him will help a lot. Support Philip Lindsay's role. I don't know. You'd hope so. They have all the pieces, it seems like. But it's a matter of getting that to fully click for them, I think, is a big deal. Because their defense, I'm not too worried about. I think their defense will hold. Vaughn has come out and said how he is going to be more of a leader, and he said it's not too late to be that Kobe mentality guy or Michael Jordan also, where you get hard on guys, but it's out of wanting them to get better and better themselves. And he said it's not too late to change that. So I think he's going to come out and be a bigger leader than he has been before, which is already substantial. I think they have a good chance. I think they will finish second in the AFC West.
I feel like right now, like we're on the same trajectory as Oakland or the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm gonna call them Oakland all season, and
I was like the Chargers when they moved. Everyone called them San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, especially since like they're like the historic rival of the Broncos. That's just gonna be
yeah, that is weird.
Like,
it's not Denver or something.
Just gonna be weird, but yeah, I don't know. I see us. I don't know. I'm just hoping that we can show that we're better than them because I think we are. But every year at home, we beat them by like 1 point, like the last 2 years, and then we go there and don't look good at all. Obviously, this year you're going to a way nicer stadium in Las Vegas.
1%.
Alrighty. Yeah. But as I was saying, the Broncos obviously going to a way nicer stadium in Las Vegas this year. Maybe that helps. You just don't know which teams are going to have fans and which teams aren't going to have fans. You've had some teams already say that they aren't going to have fans, like the Packers said for September, no fans. The newly named Washington football team said they will have no fans.
They have no fans regardless,
but,
even if they wanted to have fans there.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if Dan Snyder can do a whole 180 on his reputation, but that's another conversation for another day. But yeah. So I mean, you just feel like that rivalry's kind of there with Oakland right now because both teams are a little bit on that upswing. But I feel like obviously biased, but I feel like we're just better than them at this point, and we need to prove it this season. So,
yeah, I would agree with that. I think they would top Oakland. You'd think so. Again, it's all about them making the right adjustments, and I think Jerry Jeudy's an insane steal almost in the draft. I don't know. I think he can really take them to the next level. He's shown it, and he's shown through all his social medias and Instagram. He's putting in the work and working with the team, even when the team's not having organized like training camps and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely exciting. It's something to be excited for and look out for.
Yeah, I'm hyped for this season. Obviously, opening up September 14th. We're the last game of week 1, which is always you just feel kind of antsy all weekend waiting for the first game of the season. And hopefully this year we can win it and get that good feeling around the team and improve on the improvement that we saw at the end of last season. So, all righty. Did you have anything to add today, Bryan?
No, not particularly. Unless you wanted to talk Rockies. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, Rockies. The Rockies obviously had their 3-game series against the Diamondbacks. The first Coors Field series of the season. Put Coors Field in air quotes. You know, you have all those pundits that are like, "Oh, Coors Field, you get all these runs," and you know, when the Rockies play a division opponent that's played here a lot, it seems like it trends that way. And our pitching kind of self-destructed in some games over this series. And I mean, I'm just happy we were able to get one from it. But like against the Rangers, hopefully we see an improvement this weekend. But we're still in a good spot.
Yeah, I think just the bigger narrative is just how surprising they've been. They have the best record in the MLB last week. I don't know if they do anymore, but they've been on a tear, and their pitch for once. Not you want to knock on wood, you want to not jinx yourself, but their pitching has been doing wonders, especially their starting pitching. Actually giving their chance, because that's huge. If you start behind, you're not going to win many games. If you're already behind, you have that mentality, and the other team just has to hold you off. So the starting pitching's been phenomenal in that regard. I remember I haven't checked after this series because it's kind of a blowout this series in terms of runs. Diamondbacks had 12, 7, and then 13. But I saw like our starting pitching ERA was like just over 3 going into that series, which is really good. I think it was like second in the NL.
Yeah.
So I thought that was crazy. Also, like Charlie Blackmon has obviously been on a tear. He's hitting 500, which is unheard of. He is definitely an MVP candidate. And I think overall this shortened season helps the Rockies a lot.
Yeah.
I think because they're notorious for having their June swoon, as you call it, but there is no June for them to have a swoon.
Blackmon, I mean, we can't expect him to bat 400, but if he
not for the
400, he better be a lock for that MVP.
Yeah, no, he's literally during one of the games against the Diamond. I think it was the first game he was hitting 500 in the game. He had 2 singles to start the game, and his average is 500, like straight up, which is incredible. And then you hope to see Arenado improve his production. You saw it the last couple. He had 3 home runs the last 2 games, which is nice. But his batting average is just below what it should be and what his standard is. And he's had a history for starting season slow. But that's not really an option with this shortened season. So you hope he finds that stride soon and picks it up, and that'll be good for them.
I mean, we're about a third of the way through, so if he's able to pick it up, pitching is able to stay somewhat consistent. We should be able to outscore.
Yeah, the closing pitching is what's scary. We've probably given up almost 10 total runs in like 9th innings, probably more. It's pretty bad. So that's another thing that needs to be fixed. So I remember I was watching the second game of the Diamondback series at work, as I was saying. And it was 2-2 in the bottom of the 8th, and the Rockies scored 6 runs, so it's 8-2. And I'm like, oh, awesome! So I turned the game off, and I went and had lunch or watched something else. And then I look at the final score, it's 8-7. I was like, holy shit! That's insane.
Well, Bard's last strikeout was really good because it was right on the edge, and then the umpire calls strikeout, and you're just like, thank goodness.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think they have a lot of upside, and if they couldn't keep this going, get past this series, then that'll. I think they have a bright future. I think they have a good chance. They're up there with the Dodgers right now for best record, and that shows how stacked the NL West is.
Yeah, I mean, Padres and Dodgers are both 11-7 or somewhere around there. Last I checked, so we're about a game ahead of each of them. So hopefully, let's just keep this up. We have the Rangers and then the Houston Astros. I'm guessing we all can't wait for that series.
The Dodgers after that.
Yeah, then the Dodgers after that. So a whole week of wanting the Rockies to beat their opponents.
Exactly. That's all you can hope for.
Yeah. Alrighty. Do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. I think we covered it all.
Bayern Munich and Barcelona play tomorrow. What's your prediction?
I'm not sure. I've been keeping up with. That's the Champions League, right?
Yeah.
Is that the semifinals?
It's quarterfinals.
Yeah. That's good. I know you're a Munich fan, so I'll say Munich 2-1.
Okay, yeah. I mean, they should win, but Messi, obviously. You never like playing against him just because he can break one out and just But yeah, Bayern Munich has been the best team in Europe this season. Obviously, Champions League, you get teams like Juventus kicked down the round of 16.
Yeah.
I mean, Liverpool was also kicked down the round of 16, and so I mean, hopefully Bayern Munich can keep this up and possibly get this treble. And I mean, trebles are great, so let's go.
I know you'll like it.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter. My Twitter is @EDeanCUBuff. And what's your Twitter at, Bryan? Yep, sounds about right. All right. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.